Hey there, what's up? It's a Sick Butterman here. This is a video response to Frank Zen's Under the Influence #2, where he talked about Pierre Parenteau's labeled Brown Coffee Recordings from Montreal, Canada, right here. Now, I have to say this, that I too have all 3 official releases so far from Brown Coffee Recordings. Obviously, Sample Science's debut solo disc, which is an excellent sort of light, easy, non-threatening techno tryout, if you will. It's not bad, don't get me wrong. It's just that if you're looking for anything that's a little bit noisier, a little bit crunchier, a little bit more difficult as a listen, Sample Science is not exactly that. In fact, Sample Science is perhaps the closest thing to what your grandmother could listen to in terms of techno music, and that's a direct Pierre Parenteau quote taken from you. His second release on the Brown Coffee Recordings was this electronic messages compilation, like Frank talked about on his Under the Influence little clip there. Very, very good. This is what we're listening to right now behind me here. It's a very varied electronic compilation. Of course, there's some hits and misses, but in my opinion, the only reason why the tracks that I consider misses, in the sense that they're not hits, is because compared to other pieces which are really, really filled with butter goodness, they just don't make up, they feel not as equal as the other tracks in comparison to the pieces on this own compilation, which of course we shouldn't do. We shouldn't compare tracks from a compilation to the other tracks on the same compilation, because they're not the same project. They're all different projects. Very, very fine. Last but not least, of course, is Flesh for Frank's Raw. This is Flesh for Frank's, I'm not sure, I think this is his second official CD release. We're still waiting on Nervous Tongue Records to release the Flesh for Frank debut double-length cassette called Harsh Space Mystique. Still not available, although Frank is talking with Pierre at Brown Coffee Recordings to see if they can't release a Harsh Space Mystique version on CD instead of on tape. Sorry. A little bit under the weather here. But little known fact is that before Pierre started this label, Brown Coffee Recordings, he also released cassettes, and that's right, these are just 3 of cassettes that I found quickly, under the name Lo-Fi Madness and Counterfeit. If you remember correctly, Counterfeit was rather active a couple years ago, released quite a few varied selections here and there, and this was on his earlier label, if you will, Dubby Filter Productions, but since they were cassettes, nobody takes cassettes seriously, nobody takes cassette releases seriously at all, so pretty much all of the pre-Brown Coffee Recordings stuff that Pierre released is not being listened to. People are not hearing it, and they just don't know where to get it. But lucky for me, I got a couple here on myself. And that's what I wanted to say. That's why I wanted to add on to Frank's Under the Influence clip, is because Frank helps promote these local labels, local artists like Brown Coffee Recordings and Sample Science and all that stuff. But actually, like I said, Pierre was actually busy years and years ago. I think I met him the first time I met Pierre about 8 years ago. And even back then, he had some very solid ideas, even though he was still, what I consider, he was still in his he was still forming his own version of how he wanted to create music itself. And now that he's got his own little label, Brown Coffee Recordings, have I said that enough, Brown Coffee Recordings? Is that promotion enough for Pierre's label? I hope so. Anyway, I suggest that for anybody out there who wants to figure out exactly what's happening in terms of independent music in Montreal, well, you can't get more independent than Brown Coffee Recordings. This is very, very simple stuff. Take for Sample Science, it's packaged in these slim minis here. Very, very beautiful, simplistic, minimal packaging on all of these discs. It's still very, very good. Don't let the minimal covering and the minimal packaging. Oh, this not here is what we're listening to right now. Yeah, don't let the minimalism of the packaging and of the labels and whatnot fool you. This is actually very, very, very good production. Very nice. Anyway, so that's just my little 2 cents worth. Getting back to Frank on his Under the Influence. So yeah, cheers.